What has Ekwow Spio-Garbrah been up to, though?
Oh, running a number of little organizations and companies. Africa Business Communication is a 20-year-old company that I created in
20 years?
Yeah.
You started in 2000?
No, I started it in 1995, actually, 25 years
When
old.
you were Minister for Communication?
Not when I was actually I created the company when I was ambassador to the United States as something that one day I would spend some time on, because I didn't know what that would be my record in life or as an ambassador. But by virtue of other appointments that I had subsequently to that, I never really had a chance to devote my time and energies to it. But now that I've properly, as it were, left public office for the time being, and I have a lot of time on my hands, I'm spending most of it on two organizations. The first is Africa Business Communication, if your guests can see this. But I'm just saying I created it 25 years ago, and but it's now ready to run. And we see lots of opportunities on the African continent from mostly an international point of view, but also from basically strategic communications point of view, things that most other companies may not have the skill sets or the equipment or the mindset to deal with, things that go beyond our borders in some cases, sometimes things that are within our borders. So things like government relations, how to, if you're a foreign company in Ghana and you have challenges of all kinds with government institutions, how to go about strategizing to work more harmoniously with them. If the government of Ghana itself wants to expand its visibility and its relationships beyond having a diplomatic mission, because it's one thing to have a diplomatic mission and a representative, and then for that mission to be very proactive. I mean, if we have time, and I went into what I did, for example, in the United States, since we just talked about the United States of America as an ambassador, it really would defy most people's thinking, because most ambassadors wouldn't have done what I did, for example, when Rawlings was, well, first of all, to get your president invited within 2 months of your becoming an ambassador, to get an invitation to the White House was, I would imagine, something most people in the foreign ministry would not have. The minister at the time himself was very surprised. Rawlings himself was very surprised that I just sent you to Washington in June, and by August you have an invitation for me to visit the White House. Too fast and he was not ready for it. So he spoke down to me. Tell them something.
Yeah,
find an excuse for me,
You spoke Ghana with Rawlings.
Oh yeah, he preferred speaking Ghana, not only with me, but other people. Once he knew I could speak Ghana. I mean, that was the choice local language that we would speak between English and Ghana.
We'll come and talk about Rawlings because it's a whole subject, and of course someone you have worked with. But so this thing you do, you mentor people, young people?
No, there's a different company. That's a given organization. That's Africa Business Center for Developing Education. ABCDE. That is the mentorship organization that offers internship to students and arranges for them and helps with scholarships and so forth, and just getting the next generation better prepared for the world of work. Because one of the things we are going to talk about, I'm sure, with employment generation and so forth, but the challenge facing most young people, beyond just getting a good education or any education at all, is how to find work and how to find good paying work. So there's a gap that nobody really is filling. The government doesn't really fill it in any shape or form. And there are no proper employment agencies that specialize in looking for the needs of unemployed young people. So you actually had an unemployed, graduates association and all of that. And ABCDE, along with others, has been working towards making such organizations unnecessary. So that if you as a young person, one, take your own studies seriously, two, become part of a mentorship program where we go to secondary schools and universities, and while the students are still there, share some knowledge with them that is not taught in the classroom. So soft skills that nobody teaches. We have a range of mentors who will go there and spend not more than an hour at a time talking with the students in the assembly halls of, some of the Aquinas Secondary School, Accra Girls Secondary School, Laboni Secondary School, Presec, Achimota, and other places where we've been, and to help them, to guide them with their career planning processes. When I was in secondary school, nobody taught me anything about what career I should have, not even in university.
No mentorship.
And as of now, career guidance, even though there's a department for career guidance in the Ministry of Education, it's very poorly staffed, and they don't have any real outreach programs that tell anybody how to become a seamstress, how to become a caterer, how to become an IT specialist, all the different new disciplines that young people are interested in: music, arts, crafts, and of course the traditional professions of engineering and sub professions. Now there's micro, electronics and so forth coming up, construction industry, numerous types of things you can do in the construction industry. There's really no way and where people to get that knowledge.
Would you get a sense that the youth are not being properly targeted, and that the programs and policies being rolled out by governments, and this could be a continental problem or a national problem, do not really target the youth, or the youth have been left outside the planning scheme? Our constitution, for instance, says that if you're not 40, you cannot be president, and so on. Do you think the youth are properly targeted and policies are being tailored?
Well, to some extent, yes, but of course there's always room for improvement. As long as the constitution itself of Ghana created a free, compulsory, universal basic education as one of the pillars that all governments must try to adhere to. So it talked about progressively free education. So one government comes and then offers some subsidies in the primary sector and then junior secondary school sector. So that's what we had in the free, compulsory, universal basic education program, where most public primary and junior secondary school education was free or relatively free. Because if you get into the details of, are you buying chalk for your school? Are you paying for are you getting any food or lunch or breakfast or something? Then you can do a lot of micro analysis as to where the free is and where the free isn't. Are your parents paying anything at all towards your education, or do you get up in the morning and you go to school and your transport is free, which it never has been? Because in university in our United States, for example, you get free transportation. School buses take most students to school for free. But Ghana, no matter what they say about free education, that, for example, is not part of what is free. So
I guess since this comment you're making is in relation to a publication I recently saw, which was a publication made several years ago, when you said that there can never be free education.
Well, I said it depends on, that's what I'm saying, that it depends on the definition of what is free.
But there's free education now.
Somebody is paying for it. Somebody, you and I, are paying for that free education. So it may be free to the parent who has a child in school, but it's not free to the people of Ghana who are paying for it through their taxes. So as we are saying, sitting now, so I'm saying it's a question, it's a definitional problem, and it's also a branding problem. So you want to say the thing is free, but every child who is in secondary school or primary school has their parents paying for some part of their education. So that we even had a crisis in this country when, because of the policy of supposedly free education as defined by government, even parent-teacher associations, which were there for alumni of secondary schools like myself and others who want to help our own schools, are told, no, don't spoil the free education policy by also supporting with your own generous, private, complementary support.
You've talked about definition. What is free education? Is it free for the beneficiary or free for the payer? It can definitely not be free for the payer. And if government supplies anything and it says it's free, even though it's you and I, our taxes that have been used to pay, it is still free for the beneficiary.
No, that's what I'm saying.
If you say free Wi-Fi, for instance, in a school, your school fees is used to contribute the Wi-Fi.
Yes.
But it's still free.
But it's free when it's the private sector person. And even though the private sector, they also say it's free, and they subsidize, but another consumer pays. So I'm just saying a definition of free. Even when it's a free Wi-Fi, supposedly free from a private company, the company is not running at a loss. The company is still making a profit from other consumers who have been made to pay for that so-called free Wi-Fi.
Okay, so that's your definition of.
So I'm saying that.
But what do you make?
I want as economics from an economics point of view.
Okay.
When you are defining free and you want to really define it fully and thoroughly, then you see where the payer is. You can decide that the payer will not be the parent for this time,
Okay.
it will be the government.
Okay.
But the government is paying. And then you have to define who is the government and how are other citizens contributing to that payment, just so that it's transparent and people understand.
Regardless
but
of
for purposes of selling a product or selling a concept, yes, you can use the word free because you want people to. But you see, water, so-called, is supposedly free. At least during this COVID period,
Yes.
water has been free.
Yes.
Is it really free? Go and ask Ghana Water and Sewage Corporation whether the water is free and how are they making it free. They will tell you where the bills come from. The government and you and I eventually will end up paying.
Behind the scenes.
That's why we ended up with these utility companies, power companies, VRA and Gridco and so forth, who supposedly were subsidizing, were not being allowed to charge their proper commercial rates
running into a
and
loss.
Running into a loss, and eventually we end up paying for
regardless of how you define free SHS.
Right.